Excellent. Okay, good.
Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
And this is actually our second interview because the
Yes.
first one we had technical difficulties. And it
We had
was,
a few, we had a bit of technical difficulty this one too.
yes, we
I think
did.
we're good now.
Yeah, I think we're good now. Yeah, so just so everybody knows, we did a pretty nice interview. Was it last week?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, last week. And we had an echo problem that could not be removed. We even employed professionals to remove the echo because the video was so good. And but now we're committed to making a better one. So this one's just going to be off the charts. It's going to be so
Awesome.
good. Yeah. So welcome Meredith MacKenzie. I'm Danny Hunt, and we're going to post this onto my YouTube channel called Why Is This True?
Mm-hmm.
And so you do Akashic record readings, and that's how we met. And
Yes.
so would you kind of set the scene for us and tell us what you were doing and how it brought us to be acquainted?
Well, I just got my certification to do Akashic Records readings and consultation beginning of May. So I started the course back at the end of, or beginning of August of last year. So those months in between, you do part of the course and then you have to do a certain number of practice hours. Well, I was on my last step of the course and I needed a large number of practice hours. And of course, you're not allowed to charge for practice hours, so it's just voluntary. And I didn't know where to go for a big audience to ask this because I don't know many people in person here that are kind of aware to that. So I actually went on Facebook and I looked up a bunch of those, like spiritual groups and light workers groups and all the different kinds. And, it's really funny. I put out the intention before I started that I would get volunteers that really resonated with me and would be what I need. So I posted in a bunch of these groups looking for volunteers. And the first 8 groups I posted in, not a single response. So I was starting to go, like, maybe nobody wants to talk to me.
Wow,
And
I find that shocking.
I do too, because if I was ever offered in a free Akashic Records reading, I couldn't get on it fast enough. Like, so I was quite concerned. And so finally I found the Stillness in the Storm group, and I thought, okay, well, at this point, I don't really care who answers. I just need somebody to answer. So I put out the same thing again, and I got so many responses in under 5 minutes that I couldn't answer everyone fast enough. And you were one of those first responders. And
I think I was number 4. I think you needed 10. Was it 10 you needed?
I took 10 from you guys, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Yeah. I think I was number 4.
yes,
I
I
was
got
so happy. I was like, wow, I can't, because I get on Facebook. I'm on a lot, relatively speaking, but not enough to be that lucky. So I was like,
Well, and that's where the intention came in, because I
Right.
wanted the exact right people. And I
Right.
think that's why the previous 8 groups didn't come to fruition, because the right people weren't there.
yeah.
So I just had to find the right group, and yeah, I filled my whole schedule for the next month and a half
Wow.
with that,
Wow.
with that one ad. So yeah.
Okay, that leads me to another question. So, what do you think distinguishes the SITS group from the other groups? I mean, what was the appeal amongst those people that frequent that group for the Akashic record reading, as opposed to, like, I guess what I'm searching for is that, was there kind of some thematic thing that persisted throughout all the readings you did for that group, or do you remember? I mean, maybe you don't remember, but
Nothing really pertaining to that group. I will
Yeah.
say the readings that I do, many of them are similar in a theme, because as humans, we're all dealing with the same kind of crap, right?
Mhm.
So many times, a person will have an issue and it's an issue that 5 million other people have,
Right.
or, that 10 million other people have. So that is a common theme, but it's not pertaining specifically to the group. As far as why that group, that actually is nothing to do with the group. It's just to do with me. Because I put the intention out, I want people on my level, like vibrating on the same level as me. It just took time for me to find that level.
Mm-hmm.
So, if that was a different group or if that was, I don't know, a bunch of people that happened to meet in Starbucks one day, it's just when I brought that into myself was
Right.
when it happened, right?
Right. So
Yeah.
maybe it's a little subjective on my part to think that the ET angle might be the common thread out, because that's kind of like what I was fishing for, was like, were these, did you find a commonality in terms of the types of questions you got for the Akashic record readings as it relates to the ET phenomenon, and where am I from? Am I really a human? Am I a star
Surprisingly,
seed? All those kind of.
yeah. Surprisingly, no. I had a couple people ask, and I had people ask completely different things, and then I had other people ask completely different things from those.
Wow,
And I mean,
interesting.
yeah, when someone signs up for a reading, their soul is intuitively ready for that reading and will ask whatever needs to come up for that person at that time.
Right.
So some people it's about work, some people it's about family, some people it's about something that happened to them 50 years ago. It's totally different
Right.
depending on who it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So questions like past life,
Past life.
yeah, specific questions didn't really come up that much then in terms of like repeatedly amongst those people from the SITS group. You didn't see like them saying, I want to find out about what happened in my past life as it relates to my interest now in the ET phenomenon. That you didn't see
No,
that
that
come
wasn't
up.
a big thing. No.
No, was I the only one?
Um, well, the way you asked it, you were. There was, I want to say one other person. Yes, one other person that had that same theme. However, it didn't connect at all to past lives.
Okay.
It was just, that was her own thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm learning so much. This is great.
Every day. We always learn every day.
All right. So let's hear more about your background and what led you to your interest in the Akashic records.
That's funny you should ask. I grew up in a very Christian household. I was raised Christian, and that was kind of everything for us. So, my friends growing up were all Christian. We went to a private school. We went to church every Sunday. And so everything that I was ever taught and ever learned was based on that. And, my parents used to tell me, the things happen in your life this way because God has deemed it so. Or, if things go bad in your life, God's punishing you for something, And
this is a Baptist
knew.
church.
Yes.
Baptist church. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and that's all I ever knew. And having no outside influence, I found it not odd, but some people might find it odd, that right from when I can remember, none of that to me sounded right. Like it didn't jive with me at all.
Right.
And even as a little kid, I would sit and think and go, but that doesn't really make sense, And so I'd ask lots of questions, and no one was able to answer my questions, and then they'd get frustrated, and then I'd get frustrated, and
yeah, you're so for the questions they can't answer, they ask you to go pray to God.
right.
God will give you the answer.
Yeah, and that's not good enough for me. And I just didn't. I had a hard time just kind of saying, well, I don't have any control over my life, and I'm just gonna fall into the hands of God and hope everything's okay, and that if something bad happens, it's because I was a bad human. Whereas, on the other hand, they're saying, well, God is all loving, but then he's going to punish you for doing a bad thing. So to me, as a little kid, I was like, I don't understand. This doesn't make sense. So then when I got a little bit older, 9, 10, I would start to run away from home Sunday mornings before church so that I wouldn't have to go to church. And I'd hide in the forest behind our house. And I just left it at that. I didn't argue. I didn't try and tell anyone that they were wrong. I just thought, this is what they believe. I don't believe this. I'll get on with my life. And so I did. And then I left home when I was, a teenager, and I still had all my questions and no one could answer them. And so I started meeting more and more people that were kind of spiritually aware and had more answers for me. And so I started associating with them more, and they taught me so much. And really, when I heard the answers, it just felt right. I was just like, oh, this, I don't know how I know this, but this is it.
Are you still in contact with those people?
I am, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And actually, that's how I met my teacher for the Akashic Records. I was a client of hers for 8 years,
Wow.
up until just last year.
Wow.
And now I'm taking clients, but I'm still one of her clients, and she still mentors me, and she's amazing. She helped me through so much stuff. And seeing the person I was then and the person I am now, and having the tools to know why, I couldn't pass up doing the Akashic Records course. Mm-hmm. So a lot of that really drove me to just keep asking why, why are these things the way they are? And so
in your travels through this process, did your friends or family members notice this change in you and then seek you out to ask questions about, wow, Meredith, you used to be, a Baptist church-going woman. Now you're happy and doing something else. What's, did you plant the seed that grew somewhere, or?
Do you mean since I started taking the course, or just over these?
At any time, did you have? Because you had that circle, that Baptist church circle, right? And
yeah.
Did anybody come out to see what you're up to and why?
No.
Why you're smiling now?
I keep those two worlds very separate. Even when I was a little kid.
Wow, such power.
I'd refer to them as friends, the people you go to school with when you're little.
Yeah.
But I never really considered them friends. We were never close. Because I was in a completely different place.
Right.
They'd be excited to go to youth group, and I'd be like, this is dumb. So I never had that connection with anyone.
Okay. I had to ask.
Yeah. And so, but it's funny you ask that, because even when I was a little kid, my family members used to tell me now, that I would give them advice. And they'd say, we'd look at you, and it would sound like it was coming out of a 40-year-old adult. Like, it was just these wise words. And I don't remember this because I was too young, but they always said I used to do that even long before. But as far as specifically spiritual, no, they're not open to the possibility of it being anything but Jesus Christ.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, now, also, you were in the military.
Oh, yes, I was. Yes, I was.
Elaborate.
I retired 2012, so 4 years ago now.
And you were in for how long?
Just a first contract is 3 years for us.
3 years.
Yeah. So not long, but it seems like a really long time when you're in.
So how was that for you?
Well, I can say this now. It was a huge catalyst for me to get to where I am. And, going back, I wouldn't change anything. Was it extremely difficult? Absolutely. And it put me in a really, really dark place. I've never been in a darker place. When I left the armory, I was an armored soldier, so I say armored corps. When I left the armored corps, I was so angry and so bitter. I was drunk all the time. I was a wreck. I would have, anxiety attacks just standing alone in my kitchen in the middle of the day. And I took my pension when I left, so I didn't have to go back to work right away. I ended up going to school later that year. So I had a few months off to kind of gather my wits. And I was a mess. I just, I'd have, a dog would bark 2 blocks away down the street, and I'd just set off in this blind rage and have no idea what was happening. And it was horrible. And I was a wreck. I'd wake up in the morning and open a beer and drink till I went to bed, and I didn't want to exist anymore.
Yeah. And
by having more readings from my teacher and really working through all of that stuff, I realize now that...
And you were in contact with her during this time that you were getting out of the service?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I had to. Yeah.
Wow.
And it really just was a huge catalyst for me. So it taught me a lot of stuff, and it echoed Because our life events echo issues we have in us. So
Right.
it really brought them up and was like, look at your issues, you have to face these, you know? And so as hard as it was absolutely needed to get to where I am today.
And that was 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
Okay. So I brought this up before, and I just wanted to bring it up because this is important for some people, especially with addiction issues, is that for me and other people I've not met, not a lot, but quite a few people, they had similar in that same time frame. They had similar issues come up where they, like in my case, I knew I had a problem with alcohol a long time ago, and I pretty much quit. You know, I'd go off every once in a while, but right around the period of 2012, 2013 in there, I was just going into these episodes where I felt like I was going to crawl out of my skin. And I discovered quickly that alcohol just took that angst away.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
And it worked very well, but it was, you know, like I said before, you know, it was the right question, the wrong answer, you know. So, and one thing that really helped me, I must have a huge Canada connection, which we can get into later, but I actually found a healer's website in White Rock.
Oh, that's where I'm from.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh
that's
my
my own
gosh. That's where I'm going next.
It's funny because White Rock is literally 2 kilometers long. Like, it's this tiny little town.
Yeah. I'm going there on Wednesday.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so jealous.
Yeah. To do some more interviews.
Oh, awesome.
Because I have to do them. I have to do them in person. You know, I have a
Can I ask who
Skype.
it is?
Elena Kapulnik.
Okay, I don't know her. I thought it might be someone else, but I haven't.
Well, I'm interested. If you have somebody to recommend, I'm interested because I'm going to have like 5 days up there.
Okay, I'll think about that. I'm not sure if they're still in the area or not.
Yeah. So anyway, it was called Harmony Healing Center, and it's Thomas Moore and Rita Britnell. And he was posting the dates when these, what they call ascension pulses or energy pulses were coming in. And at that time, they were coming in like once a month, and then they slowly transitioned to twice a month. And he was posting the dates, and I was going, holy shit, that's the time when I'm freaking out or depressed or something's going on where I'm getting this need to drink to alleviate these symptoms I was having. Right? And so that put me onto this whole path of like, well, what is the source of these energies? Right? And then so he helped me discover that it was something valid. I wasn't just making shit up and I just wasn't a drunk or whatever, you know. And, you know, and so that led me on this path to where, you know, it's a long story. I'll have to do a video on it sometime. I want to interview you, but that's why I asked you about the dates and the drinking, and because there could be a correlation there, you know. Maybe not that meaningful to you for what you were going through, but there was like, for lack of a better term, an external, you know, force or factor in play during that time. Now they stopped posting the dates because it's virtually continuous.
Right, yeah.
And you can see it now on the if you go to that Russian site that tracks the Schumann frequency, those frequencies are just, you know, 3 days peaks, you know, 2 days calm, peak, peak, peak. You know, it's going from the normal Schumann frequency is like 7.83 hertz, and it's shooting up to like 35 hertz.
Yeah.
So everybody's
Earth's
getting
vibration is going up all the time.
Yes. Okay, so that's why I asked that. So as a result of your work with the Akashic Records, you don't have any like repaired family relationships, or that whole part of your life is kind of like in the past for you now, right? So because you talked about your father and
right, yeah. Well, it's how it works is when you repair the relationship in yourself, it repairs kind of that tie between the two people, even if they're not with you in the room. So, you know, 10 years ago, if you had asked me how I felt about my father, I probably would have just walked out of the room because I couldn't even talk about it. And I know no one else saw the previous interview, but my father is an extreme alcoholic, and I haven't spoken to him in many years. But we have quite a not so pleasant history. And so for many years I struggled. I couldn't talk about it. You know, I didn't want anything to do with that. I didn't want to think about it. And it's funny, a lot of my readings when I was working with my teacher went back to him every time. And she always laughs when he comes up in the reading. She's like, oh, you're going to hate this. It's him again. I'm like, no, no. But I've repaired those in myself, and now there's no negativity attached. So I feel no negative emotions toward him. I don't wish to change anything. Like I wouldn't go back and, wish it different. I have no ill ties there at all. So I've healed that on my end, and I've just kind of released it and let it go, and I feel nothing ill about it. And he's free to live his life however he wishes. It doesn't affect me anymore.
Yeah.
So in that sense, yes. But do I see him every day? No. I mean, we don't live in the same province, so that is a big factor. But
right.
I'm not on bad terms with any of my family. I talked to my mom this morning. My mom is wonderful. Yeah. She is very much Christian, so we just don't talk about that whole aspect. But we still absolutely we still get along, and I talk to her daily, and yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right. Let's see. There was another thing. Oh, I wanted to talk about something we also talked in the other really good interview. This one's already better. was our perception of time, and this talk about past life, and also how we also discussed the morphogenic field, and how we also had a discussion about 100th monkey, tipping point, or going viral in human consciousness in terms of maybe numbers of people getting a better intellectual and spiritual grasp on the concept of time, and how that might precipitate or expedite these changes that we see coming.
Well, I'll try and explain it as rudimentary as possible, because it's very confusing, and I don't even think I grasp all of it. But I'll just use a really easy example that people use all the time, is past lives. And I still refer to it as past lives just for ease of communication, because, that's a familiar term for people. When in reality, it's not past, it's happening right now. So we all know that there's, multiple realities of you. So if I take a stick, and we'll say this stick is Denny's stick, and we'll hang a bunch of pieces of yarn off this stick, and we'll say, this yarn is 1820, this yarn is 500 BC, this yarn is 30,000 years in the future, and continue on. Pick whatever years you want. They're all connected to you, and your pieces of your soul went into every single one. So you are existing in all of those at the same time. However, were you to pick up the 1820 string, the little Denny in this string is going, it's 1820! Whereas the 500 BC one is going, no, it's not, it's 500 BC. Whereas the oversoul of Denny, which sees all of it, is going, actually, this is all happening right now.
Could I have a deeper voice, please?
It's 500 BC. But you're little, and the string is little.
I couldn't resist. Everything's a joke, I'm from Orion. I can't help it.
That's a really crude explanation. I mean, time isn't linear. It doesn't, hang in little strings like that. It's just I'm trying to explain how it's not technically past.
Well, it's important because there's, we talked about Brad Johnson, who's also from your neck of the woods. He's from Burnaby. He just channeled he channels Adronis, and they did one recently that was an explanation about this whole aspect of time, or this whole misperception of time. It was really well done, and I think it's like I was saying, the more we talk about it, the more different ways that we talk about it, the more we acknowledge that the way we perceive time is actually an illusion. The more we start to integrate that into our consciousness as a possibility, even if we don't understand it, that's just opening up all these doors that are just going to help open up more doors, and then we can start talking about the morphogenic field, that common mind out there, and how we can create a world where all this stuff is now possible and can just move into the fore. you know.
Yes. And I don't know if you've heard of Bashar. He's an entity channeled by Daryl Anka.
Okay.
He does an extremely good description in his video about how time works. And
Okay.
it's quite complicated. He gets into the physics and everything.
Okay.
And he basically says, we create time. It's not something that's already created and we're moving through it. That's not really how it works. But he does a very good explanation. And there's two videos, a simple explanation and a really confusing one.
Right. I'll make sure that both of those are in the description for this video, as well as the one from Brad Johnson, so people can really start to expose themselves and start integrating this idea into their thinking. Because I think I can kind of feel that for me it's going to be really important, and I think for a lot of other people it's going to be really important because we're in the time right now where we're dispelling all kinds of illusions.
Right, and really it's about bringing humankind's power back. Right. All these centuries we've been giving our power away, and when people start to realize we create everything, we create our realities, we create time, we create everything. Even, the huge things that some say no one could create that, like for example an earthquake. The global mass consciousness of the majority of people will create everything. And I mean, in your own reality of you alone create everything. So when people realize that they have that power again, then everything can start to come up. Because why, if we have that power, why would we invite in something that could be perceived as negative? Because right now people go, oh, this happened to me and it sucks and I don't like it. Actually, you happened to you. You have the power to not do that.
Yeah.
So when we start bringing that back in, everyone will just expand and grow.
Right.
Yeah.
So the other thing we talked about was the tip, and this is in the same subject. I actually mentioned it earlier, but I want to bring it up again. Is this 100th monkey, which is an experiment that was done. I think it was on a Japanese island or something, or a tropical island somewhere. It's experiments often brought up to explain this point of mass consciousness and how we really don't understand it. But I'll explain it again. A lot of people have heard this, but I'll just say it again. There was a population of monkeys on an island, and a lot of portions of this population weren't in direct contact with each other. And one small group of monkeys started using a tool in their feeding. It was with ants or coconuts or crabs or something that they were eating, and they started to use a tool,
Right.
And so then they learned amongst themselves. And then once it got to a certain number within that little segregated population, all of the monkeys on the whole island started doing the same thing without any direct contact. So it was something that was kind of uploaded into their common mind, and they all started doing it. And then they have the same phenomena is used in marketing, where they call it the going viral or the tipping point,
right?
Where they get a certain number of people that are caught on to something, and then it just takes off. So it's going along linearly like this, and then it just goes exponential, shoots up. So, and then the other example of that I brought up was in the colonial times in the United States. There was, in those days there was potentially going to be a war with England, with Great Britain, for the independence of the colonies. And actually there was a pretty small percentage of the colonial population that was in support of the war, because in those times it was a big deal. We didn't have the colonies didn't have the resource to conduct a war against a big maritime power. It was like a pretty stupid thing to do. So obviously the majority of the population said, no, we can't fight England. They have some of the biggest armies on the planet, da 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 da. But when they allegedly got to 13%, that was all it was needed as a percentage of the population to support the war, for them then to start the war, conduct the war, and win the war. So that may not be a really good analogy, but it's kind of in the same vein. So as light workers, which I only recently started calling myself that. I had very a different conception of what that might be. I thought, well, I'm not a light worker, but it turns out I am. So okay, here I am, a light worker. So one of my motivations for the videos is just to get all this stuff out, so that we are comfortable. We don't have to be in the secret space program. We don't need to be a whistleblower. We don't need to work for the NSA and then run off to Russia with a big, bag of documents. Just amongst ourselves, we can tell our stories and have a huge effect on what happens to the whole planet.
Yes,
just
absolutely.
by becoming comfortable about talking about stuff that isn't normally talked about. Or if you feel isolated or ridiculed, we're going to stop all that. Right?
Yeah, and that's
why I
the
think
job of
video
light
is
workers.
so important.
Yes,
Right?
absolutely. That's the job of light workers. We're here to spread the word and spread the light.
Right.
And that doesn't necessarily mean preaching or anything. All it means is being in your truth and your light. That's it.
Right.
Because, like the lighthouse, it never changes depending on the weather. It just shines its light and that's all.
Right.
And everyone else can see it and is affected.
Right. It's a very good point, because we're so conditioned to thinking, well, I have to do something.
No.
Right? And you don't. But that's a point that we need to keep bringing that point up again, because our conditioning will always bring us back to like, well, no, I have to have a blog, or I have to go write something, or I have to produce videos, or I have to, you know what I mean? That may be your calling, and if it is, pursue it.
Right.
But otherwise, if you're cleaning windows and having great joy,
absolutely,
or sweeping the street and having great joy, and people are picking up on that, bang, you got it.
Yep. That's the strongest
enough.
thing.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, I have to put my glasses on for a second because I took some notes. The other thing I want to talk about some of the people that follow, like the other interviews I do, the people that I'm interviewing follow a fellow named Cobra from 2012 Blogspot portal. He talks about this thing called the event, and it's a specific thing that's going to happen probably within the next couple of years. David Wilcox likens it to the sun sneezing. I think he's the one who said that. And it's basically through this toroidal photon belt that the solar system is moving into, and it's changing the whole frequency of the entire solar system. And the focal point seems to be the sun for emanating this new energy that's going to flood the planet. And people are saying that the Earth itself is going to migrate from 3D to 4D or 5D, fifth dimensional reality, and it's going to take all the inhabitants of Earth with it. There's some debate about how all that's going to come down, but for lack of a better word, we call it the event. And most of the people I interview are very familiar with David Wilcock, Corey Good, who's a secret space program whistleblower, Cobra, this guy who's an anonymous spokesperson for what's called the resistance movement. And so, and a lot of people liken it to the planetary ascension. It's like a seminal event where the frequency comes up, everybody experiences this wave of love, this realization like, oh my gosh, this is what all this is about. I was asleep, now I'm awake, that kind of experience, an awakening experience. And then from that, we kind of can't go back. We're going to build the world based on this new episode.
Download.
Yeah, download. Yeah. And so is any of this familiar to you in your work, or have you encountered this type of thinking, or have your contacts with the Akashic record made any reference to an event like this, or planetary ascension, or?
Specifically in the records, no. Simply because I've never asked. They just answer the questions that I asked. So I've never asked. As far as it actually happening, absolutely, I believe it. However, it's human. I do know this much from the records, that it's global mass consciousness, we touched on that earlier,
right,
is bringing us towards that. It cannot happen to the planet. We have to take the planet to it, which is happening finally, and it is coming very soon, I hope. But if it were to happen to us, the people, because there's going to be souls that aren't ready, and they won't just, those souls that aren't ready, they're not going to wake up and go, oh, I was sleeping. They're going to go, oh, I can't handle this, I'm done. And they'll leave. If the soul's not ready, it will not just accept information. Like, for example, I cannot go into someone's Akashic records without their express permission. And once inside, there have been times where people will ask a question and the keepers will come back and go, they're not really ready to hear the answer. And I cannot tell them the answer, because what's going to happen is they're going to go, nope, I don't want to see this. And they just deflect. So until a soul is ready for anything, you can't force anything on it. You can't help it. You can't talk to it. You can't, nothing. You know, you could show it with all the proof and it'll go, nope, totally not ready to hear this, which is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
We're all in our own states of readiness.
Right.
But now the planet is starting, the global mass consciousness is growing exponentially all the time towards this new thing. And absolutely, it's closer now than it's been for the rest of my life. Like, it's moving faster all the time.
Yeah.
And absolutely millions of people are waking up every day. And I see it happening more and more than I have ever at this pace before. But I mean, other than that specifics, I don't really know much about it. I haven't asked.
Yeah. Okay.
Because really, it's up to humankind. You know, if this had been, for example, if Cobra had told us this 200 years ago, would it have even been accepted into our minds? Nope. Most people would be like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. So we're at a point now where we're growing and being more receptive, and more people are doing that. So it's like a big snowball, right?
Okay. Now, how does that relate, you think, to the planetary consciousness? I mean, you can't really segregate humans from planetary consciousness, but one of the things that's brought up in this discussion is like Gaia herself, the planet Earth, is going to go through this change, and it's almost like you'll hear some people talk about it as if she is initiating this episode, and will take the humans with her or not, kind of scenario.
Yeah. Again, this is just my guess because I haven't asked, but from what I know, the planet herself is passive. She is here to house us and to help us learn how not to destroy each other and herself, which, well, is not going so great. But as far as taking us anywhere, nothing in the universe can take us or do anything to us. It's all up to us.
Okay. Because
we create our everything.
Okay.
Right?
Has the Agarthan populations ever come up in any of your readings? These are the under-earth beings that live within, like, there's a theory that, there's the one extreme is the hollow earth theory, where there's actually entrances into the interior of the earth from the North and South Pole. And then there's also a variation of that is great, huge underground catacombs, caverns with populations of humanoids that have been on the planet for thousands of years or millions of years and have been there isolated from the surface population.
Right.
And
well,
actually appearing in human history as in some cases as portraying themselves as gods or extraterrestrial beings. And so there's more and more evidence coming out about this actually being the case, that there is several different populations, they call them Agarthans, that live subsurface and are mostly just hidden from humanity. Has that ever come up?
It hasn't. However, I may be able to shed some light on that.
Okay.
If we remember one key thing, it makes kind of everything answerable. We create everything. So if it has ever been imagined in a human thought, it exists. It may not be in this reality, but it does exist. So if I imagine, tomorrow that Meredith can fly, in some reality, that exists now. So can I say this does or doesn't exist? Nope, because of course it does. Have we, made billions and billions of realities with different things? Absolutely. And it happens every nanosecond. Okay. And Bashar touches on that also. And an easy way to remember, at least for me, is I think of it kind of like a tree branch that, like, it doesn't exist, but it's growing into a tree branch. A tree branch grows and all these little parts come off of it. So if you're the center, you're constantly going in your life. Every nanosecond of thought sends off 4, bajillion new branches of realities that exist. Is it your choice to go into one of these? Absolutely. Some people do, some people don't. You know, it's totally up to that individual person. So yes, all of those things do exist. And, you know, depending on which reality they exist in, it just depends for the person.
Yeah, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it helps kind of answer, you know, if people ask, you know, do aliens exist? Of course. You know, does this thing exist? Absolutely. Because, you know, because consciousness has thought of it. So you have made it into a reality.
So you say you're from White Rock?
Yes.
And you lived there as a child?
Yes.
How long did you live there?
I lived there until I was, 16.
Oh my gosh.
And then I moved to Vancouver.
Yeah?
And then I traveled around the US for a year. And then I moved back to White Rock for a bit. And then I was in the Army, so then I was all over.
Oh, wow.
And now I'm in Edmonton.
So should I go to that Baptist church when I'm up there?
No. I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay.
Unless you want to be frustrated.
Nah, man, I could take it. I was raised Catholic, and then I went back to Christianity. Not the Catholic religion, but more of the Bible-based type. And I was driving that truck for a while. I did that for about 7 years or so. I was into the home church movement and the unincorporated church movement and all that kind of stuff. Studied the Bible, studied apologetics, which is the defense of Christianity. So I have a big soft spot for Christians. You know.
Yeah, my mom reads all those books, and
yeah,
we just don't touch on the topic.
Yeah.
However, have you read the book Conversations with God?
No.
Oh my God, it's phenomenal. You need to read it.
Okay.
It was recommended to me, and it blew my mind. Basically what it is the author was kind of in the same position as you and me. He got to a point, like he was raised in a religious house, and got to a point where he was asking all these questions, like, why does this keep happening? Why is humanity killing itself? Why is my life miserable? Why can't I hold a job? Like, if God is so good, why did all this happen? And basically one day, God actually answered. And so he channeled all of the answers, like he wrote the question and then the answer from source himself. And he answers everything. He answers, you know, why children are starving in Africa and all of the answers you could possibly want. And it is absolutely mind-blowing.
Conversations with God.
Yeah.
And do you know the author?
Sorry?
I can just look it up on Amazon. I'll find it that way, huh?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a 3-part book. I've only read the first part.
Okay.
It comes in 3 separate books, but you can get it in a unit also. Mm-hmm. And, oh my God, it's amazing. And actually, God explains religion to him. Because he asks, well, in the Bible it says this. And God says, well, actually, you wrote the Bible, humans. I didn't write this. And here's why this doesn't make sense. And here's what I meant, sort of. And, it's a good book.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's great. Let's see. I'll check my notes again. I was so impressed with the first interview, and I'm sorry to keep referring to it, but it was a seminal event for me. Let's see.
It was good.
Oh, I know something that we talked about. We talked about language, and I made a comment about how I stutter and I stammer and I go and all that. And part of the reason that I've discovered that happens to me is that when I get a thought, it's like a holograph, and it's kind of like what's a Mandelbrot? What they call those? Where they use math and they create a repeating pattern. The more you zoom in on it, the pattern keeps developing into repetitions of itself.
I'm not sure.
Mandelbrot is the one I'm thinking of. Anyway, so my thoughts do not correlate very well with language. Okay. So I was thinking, God, if only I could have this conversation with Meredith telepathically. You know,
that's right.
We would just get these like downloads back and forth, and you'd see the video if I was just grinning and nodding and grinning and nodding. We wouldn't say a freaking thing. We'd just be grinning and nodding, and we'd get these data things going back and forth. And I was thinking, I read somewhere about how language came into the human experience thousands of years ago, and prior to that, we were like the animals. We didn't need to talk. And I was saying, like, when we're little, we're taught, like, well, that's what separates us from the animals. Makes us superior to the animals is we have language and we can reason.
No.
And no. And I was like, no, man, you got it backwards. Where our consciousness fell, and which necessitated the use of language so we could communicate, because we couldn't do it telepathically anymore.
Right.
It's a fallen state, actually.
Yeah, they're way advanced from us, animals. They talk telepathically all the time. How do you think they talk?
Yeah.
But, no, humanity is working towards that again, but you're absolutely right. It's I won't say a lower state, because it's just a state.
Yeah, right.
It's just us learning how to get back to our original state, which is, pure love and compassion, and there's no restrictions, telepathic, everything.
And the path from where we're at to there is going to include telepathy.
Right. Well, that's part of it. Like, we're just learning to get back to that place.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So on that note, I have a favor to ask you.
Okay.
Can you bring the birds back in the room?
I've got 2 in here right now. They're just sleeping.
They are?
Yeah, I can bring them out.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay. So. Oh, she's grumpy. She's grumpy because I woke her up.
Hi, sleepy one. What's her name?
It's Lammy.
Zabby.
Lammy.
Labby?
It means the friend in French.
Oh, I thought it was a Canadian beer.
No.
What's a Canadian beer that sounds like that?
Labatt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See?
No, that's not Labatt.
All right. So, thank you so much for this interview. I want to ask you, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about or add, or? Oh, I know. We want to talk about your website, and you have a Facebook page devoted to your Akashic record business.
I do. Yes,
Okay.
I have both a website and a Facebook page, and the 2 are linked, so
Okay.
you can access one from the other.
Okay.
And my bio's on there and a bunch of information. You can purchase readings through both of those.
Okay.
And get a hold of me if that's necessary.
And it's going well.
Yes. Yeah, I have a reading in a couple days, actually. I'm trying to think, what's the date today? Yes, I do. Next week.
Is it created new management demands on your life, and you're kind of like, no, it's pretty.
Well, yeah, because I left my other jobs. I worked jobs the same as everyone else. I was a bank teller. I worked at the grocery store. I did, newspaper route, all those. Was in the army. I left those 9 to 5s because I wanted something better, and I wanted something that reflected me, and I was able to shine my light in. So this is my business now. So, I determine everything, my own hours, and it's wonderful.
Right. That's great. I'm
Yeah.
very happy for you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, the freedom is invaluable.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you very much. It was good.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah. Second time's a charm.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Awesome. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye.